Okay. All right. So this is the final workshop of our Publishing Masterclass series, looking at enhancing your academic CV for residency and beyond. We're really going to talk about two different sort of systems. We're going to talk about Pakistan, and Shazim is going to walk us through uh, sort of what are the requirements for residency, fellowships, and beyond that within the Pakistan system. He's also going to describe his experiences, and then we also have Mubin to describe his experiences in the United States system. So just to give you an overview of the two systems that are most commonly pursued. And of course, if you have questions about other systems, we're happy to connect you with other individuals who are not here, but have that experience as well. Yeah, so last workshop of this Publishing Masterclass series, we're still working on what other master classes we might have, maybe a statistics one, because a lot of people express interest. Please do let me know if there's any feedback you have on this masterclass, what could have been done better, as well as other topics that you wanted to explore but was not in the scope of this masterclass. The learning outcomes of this last workshop is to provide you some strategies for building a compelling academic CV within the context of what's required for working in Pakistan and what's required for working in the United States. Explain some of these strategies and specifically strategies on gaining relevant experience that may not be included in your CV, but may be very powerful for you to secure that residency, that fellowship. And then finally, provide some guidance on navigating residency applications. Okay. Shazim, go ahead. And Shazim, if whenever you want to move the slide, just let me know, say next slide, and I'll move it.
Okay, thank you very much, Umair. So I'll be talking about the residency system in Pakistan and what the requirements are for the residency system, how the residency system works, and what you need specifically to progress with residency in Pakistan with regards to research and other things. And even beyond residency, when we want to become assistant professors, associate professors, and the ultimate goal of becoming a head of department and a professor, as the goal is for many people here. So let's start with that. Please, next slide, please, Amir. Right. So my basic advice for building an academic CV is be goal specific. Maybe the first step I would suggest for anyone is to sit down and really evaluate according to your situation, your own personal situation. What is your goal? What is the major overlying objective that informs your decisions when you're going to consider, okay, I'm going to pursue maybe this field, maybe I'm going to become a surgeon, maybe I'm going to become specifically an ENT surgeon, a vascular surgeon, and maybe I want to become a surgeon in Pakistan or not. And based upon the clarity and the conciseness, I would divide your goals into two specific categories, right? So if, for example, you're super laser focused and you have a very, very, very clear set of goals in your mind, I would say your goals are quite concise. For example, if I'm talking about myself, I initially, for my residency at least, I wanted to stay in Pakistan. I had multiple reasons for that. Many reasons of them were very personal. But for these initial 4 to 5 years of residency, I was going to stay in Pakistan. And I specifically wanted to be an ENT surgeon in Pakistan pursuing residency. And those were my concise goals. But for many people, and understandably so, because not everything is that easy to establish when you have such vast innumerable choices, right? Maybe you don't have a specific goal in mind. Maybe you just have, okay, a general ballpark that this is what I want. Maybe your goal would be something vague. Maybe you just want to be in a surgical field when you're in medical school. Maybe you think, okay, I'm going to be in a surgical field. Or maybe you think, okay, I'm going to pursue residency maybe here. And if I get the opportunity, I'll go outside. I'll go to the UK, the US, and depending on where I get matched, whatever specialty, I'll adopt that. regardless of both of these goals, whether you have extreme clarity or you have a general horizon goal in which you know that this is the broad path I want to be on, but the concise, exact goals aren't there, I would say research really benefits both of these. And we will see how it benefits both of these in the next slides. Yeah, Umar. Please, next slide, please. Um, so basically, if we look at horizon goals, uh, this really allows, if we go into research and you're not specifically, you don't know which surgical field, for example, let's say your horizon goal is that you want to get into surgery. What this allows you to do, research into, let's say, surgical fields allows you to do, is it gives you wide exposures into different surgical specialties. So maybe decide, okay, let's do an article on vascular surgery, maybe do one on, let's say, cardiothoracic surgery, maybe one on general surgery, maybe one on ENT. And maybe when you go deeper into those specialties, you merge deep into the article and you understand certain things. Maybe it clarifies your goals to a greater extent and allows you to convert those horizon goals into more concise goals. And it maybe allows you to uncover those hidden affiliations that you might have for a specific subject. If you have concise goals, one of the biggest things is to ensure that your network is built up properly, present at conferences and other media. And by that, I mean that if you have any other opportunities of presenting, maybe it's not specifically an academic article, maybe it's not an academic conference, maybe it's some other thing, like maybe I recently remember I was in a All Pakistan speaking competition, which was related to ENT, but because it was broadcast on social media, it gave me a wide audience to portray my experience with, right? And it allowed great exposure to many, many consultants all over Pakistan. So if you have concise goals, conference presentations, speaking well in conference presentations, conveying your work that you're passionate about in conference presentations and in other media in which you can display what you know, it really allows you to make those connections that are very valuable down the line, not only in the sense of finding mentors, but also possible positions down the line. So always remember to promote your work, and by promoting your work, you promote yourself. And regardless of the destination, your research, and particularly the meaningful research, will set you apart. Yeah, Mary, could we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so if we're specifically talking about residency, if I would like to break down the system a bit, we usually have a central induction policy, which is in which there are a set number of criteria against which you're judged, right? That could be, okay, so what are your marks in MBBS? How many times have you failed during your medical degree? Maybe what are the number of researches that you publish in acclaimed journals? There are multiple criteria. And one of the big ones is if you've worked in periphery hospitals or a THQ hospital, and based on that, you're assigned a specific mark, which will make up your merit that ultimately assigns you to, okay, you're eligible to apply to this college or medical school or hospital, and this is the specialty that you can apply to. The biggest thing for residency and even higher up posts is that the criteria are always changing. And I remember very clearly that even whilst I had applied, they had changed the criteria even after accepting applications. And that's one of the biggest dilemmas of Pakistan, that nothing is really fixed. Even then, regardless, in many of these residency applications and higher up posts, almost always research has been undeniably credited. And especially for higher up posts, if you are comfortable with research, you'll always have benefit over those people who don't know how to do research. And the thing is that this criteria for the higher up posts, if you're going to become a senior registrar, if you're going to become an assistant professor, an associate professor, professor, the requirements of research have more or less been constant as opposed to the residency. And these days, what the requirement is that either you have original articles, a systematic review, or meta-analyses. These are the three big, broad article sections that they accept, right? And they have further criteria that, okay, the HEC rank, HEC accreditation, and if it's PubMed index. And only if you can write good research papers will you be able to meet those criteria. Unfortunately, in residency applications and in higher up posts, extracurricular activities, leadership roles, clinical experience other than what I've already stated, the ones that in which we have periphery work in assigned posts such as being a medical officer and on an ad hoc basis or regular basis in a periphery hospital or in a THQ or a DHQ, they do not really get much attention. And again, volunteering and clinical attachments also do not carry weight per the criterion specified for the residency applications and beyond. And next slide, please, Amanda. So we already understand that regardless of the criteria that often changes, most of the time, the one thing that is constant is research. And how will we find those research opportunities that will enhance us and ultimately enhance our career? The easiest way is to look at where you are right now. And that's your existing networks and your department and your institution. Now, what I mean by that is I'll give my example. The way I initially got into research was I started research with my father. That was my very initial stage, right? And then I heard that Mubin was doing research with Umair, and I reached out to Umair, and then we eventually started working together. And from that, and that was like a few years back, multiple years back, actually, I have slowly progressed into which I'm fairly adept at conducting research myself now. So utilizing those existing networks that you already have a basis on allows you to progress quicker and much more easily. These days, LinkedIn and other social media, but specifically LinkedIn, really, really helps you promote your work. If you have great links on LinkedIn, you can collaborate with people from all over the world and many, many people to enhance their residency applications. Or, for example, if they want to go to the UK, and even some people who want to stay in Pakistan, they get together and they can share valuable information, collaborate, and further enhance and build each other up. One of the things that I would like to highlight is that you should do your research on whom you want to work with. For example, if I want to work with a specific person who's, say, let's say, a great rhinologist and has a research interest, which I do actually have a person in mind, then I would actually look into the kind of work that he is into. For example, one of the guys that I want to work with is highly interested in functional endoscopic sinus surgery, and he often visits conferences in Pakistan. So my goal would be that I would read through his papers, find what he is doing that's innovative, that's interesting, and then maybe I could make a meaningful connection to him, and maybe eventually use those meaningful connections to maybe work with him and gain his mentorship down the line. And that's why I always believe that utilizing conferences to the fullest is one of the chief things that a person, regardless of wherever they are in the world, can do, because it not only increases your exposure to the local community of surgeons and consultants, but also those who are visiting internationally. And finally, obviously, if anyone ever needs any help, then TMT is always there to help you guys out and to advance your research and your academic career. That's all from me for right now. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. Let's take a short break here to see if Ali has any questions. You can put in the chat and Shazim is happy to answer them. Yeah, sorry, sorry, you can't hear me. I said take a short break here to see if you have any questions for Shazim about the Pakistan system and the process. Just put it in the chat if you have any questions. Okay, sounds good. So let's go into the US system. Now, Mubin is doing residency in the ICU, or he's doing fellowship in the ICU. He just completed residency. He had to go on call today, but fortunately, we have him in a recording, which is basically going to repeat what he planned to say if he attended today's workshop. So I'm going to share the recording on the screen. I'm going to start it. Just let me know if you can hear it. And then we'll continue to watch together. Okay, good. Okay, can you hear him?
Hello everyone. My name is Mubin.
Can you hear him? Yeah, okay.
For those of you that don't know me, I am currently a first year endocrinology fellow at Temple University Hospital. I did my residency training at Abington Jefferson Hospital. I'm just gonna be talking to you guys about my personal experience through not only the residency application process, but also the fellowship application process. So I think I've been fortunate enough to kind of go through this twice, and I've picked up a few things which I think will be very useful when those of you that are interested in going to the United States will apply. Just kind of some background. As we all know, residency match is getting more and more competitive. In 2024, 44,835 applications were made, which is the highest amount as like how highest amount ever. As we know, USMLE scores are extremely important, but research, as we know, is getting more and more important. The reasoning behind this is probably because step one has become more of a pass-fail exam. There's a lot of focus on step two CK, and not everyone is able to give step three before coming to the United States. A survey of 885 program directors from 393 institutions actually found almost half of them, 41%, looked at people's research background before offering any interviews. And I think this is extremely important and highlights again the importance of research to kind of be a way in which to help yourself stand up from the rest of the competition. Also, another thing, although, obviously USMLE scores are extremely important along with research, there are other things you can do to help build your CV that go beyond just this. Things like leadership roles and extracurricular activities, I think, are something that are understated and something that are very important, especially during the interview itself. You may think that maybe one of the roles that you've done as a leader may not relate to medicine, but you'd be very surprised as to what kind of intrigues program directors and kind of the qualities they're looking for. They're looking for someone that not only will be a good worker and is intelligent, but they're also looking for leadership qualities because here in the United States, when you're a physician, you're expected not only to be on top of your game academically, but also be a leader as you'll be part of many teams, many multidisciplinary teams, and it's more of a cohesive unit when the physician is able to take a leadership role sometimes. And extracurricular activities are just kind of ways to show the program that you're well-rounded, you're able to manage multiple things at the same time. And I think also gives them an insight regarding your personality rather than just the numbers and kind of like how many research publications you had. So going forward, gaining experience in terms of research, I would say the easiest way to kind of get into research, and the thing that I think is something that anyone would be able to do, is to start with the publication of case reports and abstracts. Case reports are extremely easy, as you know. Basically, it's just describing a case that you saw, and it can be something interesting. And basically, just giving a brief background, a case description, and also a discussion section, kind of elaborating on what the teaching points of the case were. I know Omer in a previous talk had kind of gone about how to structure a publication, and how the background kind of just gives a general background regarding the topic and what you're going to delve into. The case description just talks about the exact hospital course of the patient, or even if it's in the outpatient setting, kind of like the course of treatment and tests that the patient got, and the discussion just delves more into kind of what the condition is and future directions of study. Um, it's important to remember that when it comes to case reports, they don't necessarily have to be these extremely rare or extremely, like one in a million entities in order for them to be interesting. As long as there is some sort of teaching point involved in your case report, you can definitely get it published. An example of this would be when I was in my first year of residency and trying to get more case reports to apply to endocrinology. There was a patient who was in the hospital who had sickle cell disease, and the patient's hemoglobin A1C, for some reason, was on the lower side, because, as we know, in people with sickle cell disease, they have high cell turnover, and their A1C can be lower than what you expect. And I kind of did some reading regarding all this, because because the patient's blood sugar readings were coming up much higher in the inpatient setting than what kind of was told to me by the A1C. And I learned about fructosamine assay. So after I sent the fructosamine assay and it came back high, it kind of showed me that the hemoglobin A1C was not actually reflective of how the patient's blood sugars actually were. Although fructosamine assay is a test that has been used for many years, it's not something that everyone is aware of. And sometimes kind of what a case report can do is it can just highlight, things that may not be used as frequently, and it doesn't necessarily have to deal with, uh, like, the extremely super rare cases. And another important part when it comes to research and case reports is you want to get involved in whatever projects and everything you can, especially at this stage in your career. Don't think that, I'm 100% just going into cardiology. I'm only going to do projects that relate to cardiology. Every research project is valuable experience. It's a way to learn, and it's a way to grow as a researcher and a doctor. Whenever you have the opportunity, you should definitely take part. And you'd be surprised how the career path of many people changes. When I started residency, I was very interested in rheumatology. But things based off of my experiences that I had in the hospital and working with the different attendings, I realized, like endocrinology is what I wanted to do. So really don't narrow yourself as a person or a researcher. You'd be surprised at the things that come back to help you over the years. Another example is, like when I was applying for residency, I'm sure Omer would remember, I was actually interested in going into pediatrics. And that's why I published so much with Omer in the world of vaccine hesitancy. But after publishing all that, I realized, actually I want to go into internal medicine. And you better believe that in most of my internal medicine interviews, I was actually asked about my vaccine hesitancy research, because it kind of applies to a broad variety of different areas. So it just goes to show that whatever research you do, it kind of carries forward, and everything is relevant when it comes to medicine. Even during my endocrinology fellowship interviews, I was asked regarding my vaccine hesitancy research. So things always will come back and they will benefit you. And always try to publish, I would say, make a group of individuals that that are very serious about publishing, very serious about pursuing research, and work together in terms of finding unique cases, think of research ideas, because you will always publish more as a group than you will alone. And this is something that I think a lot of people lose sight of, and because of that, they miss out on a lot of publications in the name of competition. So when it comes to residency applications, the first thing that always pops up is obviously the USMLE. The USMLE is a very, very difficult exam. It has been a few years since I've given it, but I do have firsthand contact with, many first-year residents, not only American medical graduates, also IMGs from all around the world, during my residency training and also now in fellowship. And UWorld and First Aid kind of still is the backbone of all kind of like the basic training when it comes to the USMLE. It provides excellent concepts, and really, the things that you learn in UWorld and First Aid will carry you forward for the rest of your life. It's very important that you build your concepts early, and you do not think just because, USMLE is a pass-fail exam, I don't have to take it as seriously. I can guarantee you that, myself and a lot of other people who you will ask when USMLE was a numbered exam will say that a lot of the basis for how well they did on step 2 CK was kind of due to the concepts that they had built in step 1. And that step 1 knowledge really carries over not only to step 2 CK but also step 3. Other things to help boost your scores, I would say on top of that, I was a very big fan of MBOS. MBOS was something that was very new when I started doing my USMLE prep, and now has become more and more common. It is a very difficult question bank. It asks a very nuanced questions, which will help you stand out from the rest of the crowd. And it also is a good medical resource because it also has a lot of literature that you can read. And at this level, I cannot stress this enough. It is very important to understand concepts rather than just memorize facts. When you ultimately enter into the United States, you will realize that this is a place where you cannot just live off of just basic memorization. You really need to understand, the core concepts, because that will help you in fellowship, that will help you as a doctor. And, patients here know when you are not, because of the health literacy here, they know when you are not really understanding what's going on. And alhamdulillah, I've been very fortunate. I was able to score in the 250s for most of my exams, but now it's getting even more and more competitive. Other things such as Kaplan and online MedEd have excellent lectures. I use both of them during my training, and they kind of help to build a good core basis. If lectures is kind of how you kind of learn. So when it comes to the actual ERAS application, personal statements are something that I think are very important and kind of get swept under the rug. I've seen a lot of people fall for this trap that, in terms of personal statements is something that I can write last minute. I can write it, in the last week before applying to residency. Please do not have this mindset. Personal statements are something that are becoming more and more important because as, USMLE step 1 is becoming a pass-fail, or has become a pass-fail, program directors are looking more and more at these tiny things to kind of help distinguish one candidate from another. A personal statement is exactly how it sounds. It should be something personal. It should talk about your personal experiences and kind of how they relate to the field of medicine and why you want to go into that specific field that you want to go into. Usually, what I've noticed is a successful way to write a personal statement is starting off with maybe like a story or an anecdote of something that kind of drew you into that specific field. In my case, it was a story about a lady who was diagnosed with CNS vasculitis after having years of unexplained headaches by an internal medicine doctor. And I've seen many other examples like that. It's just very important that, it's something that kind of speaks from your experiences and kind of what makes you unique. You should also kind of delve into, again, why you want to go into that field and experiences that you've had that have kind of emphasized that fact. In terms of the personal statement, another thing that I see is people trying to be kind of a little bit too unique in kind of their personal statements, and sometimes they can come off as a little bit strange kind of how they're wording things or kind of like how things are being portrayed. It's kind of important that, with personal statements, you want it to be good, but you don't want it to stand out for the wrong reasons. And what I mean by that is, your the experiences that you kind of talk about in your personal statement should relate to medicine and should kind of have a direct link to kind of what you are doing, hopefully as a doctor in the future. So it's very important that, you don't go off in tangents talking about different things in your personal life, which, like I've seen a lot of people do, and also to avoid things that like, kind of don't make sense to your application. Other things that are important are, making sure you have excellent spelling and grammar. This is something that I see often disregarded by a lot of people and sometimes leads to them not getting any interviews or them not being matched. We all know people who have gotten those double 250s, who have experience but have not matched. And I think the personal statements and these things are the things that kind of hold people back a lot of the time. Do not plagiarize your personal statement. Programs are very good at recognizing when a personal statement has been used year after year. Some of them even have programs to kind of check for plagiarism. And like don't leave this for the last minute. It takes months to write a personal statement. Ask people who have been in the field, people who have matched, send them your personal statement for suggestions. If you need, like there are programs like Grammarly that help with grammar and spelling checks, and there are even people that sometimes can be paid online to kind of just like look through your personal statement, and kind of just like talk to you or give you advice in terms of how to better write it. You should try to keep it as original as possible. You should not like try to plagiarize it. And again, like most of the writing should come from you. Ask others for help, but try to make it as personal and unique to you as possible. In terms of the ERAS CV, more and more they're asking about experiences and kind of how it helped guide you towards your field of medicine. It's important that when you are describing your experiences, explain how they will relate to your future job, as a resident. It doesn't necessarily, all your experiences don't necessarily have to directly be a clinical rotation. They can be something maybe related to medicine or something that you think will help you as an internal medicine resident or whatever resident you choose to be. Again, like, for example, for me, when I applied, I unfortunately did not have a lot of rotations because I applied during the year of COVID and a lot of rotations were closed. I was able to do some rotations, for example, with a physical therapist that I was working with. And, like during the time when I wasn't really researching, was more studying for my steps, I did a month's rotation with him. And the way I kind of phrased that as to how it would relate it to medicine was, when I was working with a physical therapist, I saw various medical conditions, musculoskeletal medical conditions, and how they presented, the different treatments that can be done from a physical therapy and how to kind of work in an interdisciplinary team, when it came to treating patients, because we understand now that multimodal therapy is better than just giving medicine to people. Working in a team is always helpful. So this kind of gives, programs the idea that, okay, this guy knows about a little bit about the healthcare system in North America. He knows the importance of working in a team, kind of highlight your characteristics, in like kind of through each of your experiences. Other things to be wary of include all of your publications. You would be very surprised as to what publications programs end up being interested in. And also, understand that, again, if it doesn't directly relate to what you want to eventually do for residency and fellowship, that's okay. It kind of gives, as long as you have some publications written there, it can also show the program that, this patient or this person has had experiences with the research process and will probably make them more likely to pick you for an interview. And a new thing that has been going on in the ERAS applications nowadays is kind of picking an area of preference of where you would like to be. That's very important. I think having a personal connection to a certain area of the United States will help will help programs in that area kind of pick you more for an interview, telling them, you know, like I have a relative there, I have family friends there. They will want to pick you more because they know that, you know, like coming from Pakistan, it's a big change to come to the United States, and programs know that you would prefer to be in places where you know people. Even though, you know, the program may be a lesser program, they might understand that location is such a big factor for you that you will rank them higher. So make sure to leave some sort of area of preference. I would say the Northeast is a good area in terms of IMGs being matched. And now more and more, the South has become more and more open to IMGs. The Western United States is still very tough, but again, it is possible if you have high enough scores, enough research, and maybe if you know someone in a West Coast program. Letters of recommendation are something that, you know, I feel like I've learned more and more about, even especially as a like applying for fellowship this time around. It's very important you get letters of recommendation from people that actually know you and your clinical skills. You know, I learned this even during my endocrinology interviews where the endocrinology, one of my mentors in the field of endocrinology, he told me, you know, you should not only ask endocrinologists to write you letters of recommendation, but also ask people who you've directly worked with and know your clinical skill set best to write you a letter of recommendation because they can write it a lot more personal. Basically, in these letters, programs are just looking to see your qualities, you know, what type of person you are and whether you can work really well in a team. It's very important to tell your authors for your LORs early that, you know, I want you to be the author of my letter of recommendation. That way they're able to prepare themselves and it kind of gives them time to write a letter of recommendation that is more personal. No one likes being rushed when it comes to writing a letter of recommendation. And when they ask you, you know, do you waive your right to see the LOR? You should, because oftentimes this is a red flag to programs if you say that, no, like I want to see my letter of recommendation, because it kind of shows that you are underconfident that that person will write you a good letter of recommendation. If the author of your letter recommendation is maybe not not as experienced in writing letters of recommendation, you can give them examples and kind of to kind of give them an idea of kind of what you're looking for. And again, the quality of what's written in the LOR is just as important as who wrote it. I cannot stress this enough. It's very important to understand that, you know, although, you know, ideally you should have a US letter recommendation. I know, you know, even like a few of my co-residents at Abington, they had zero US clinical experience and they were able to match at Abington Hospital. And, you know, like it just goes to show that like it's more important to have a good letter recommendation from someone who knows you than a bad one from, you know, just some random US physician. And now I think they will transition us over to the question and answer session.
Okay, thank you all for watching that. So that's it for Pakistan and the United States. I wanted to take this final opportunity, spend some time answering any of your questions. We'll do our best to answer questions related to the United States, but if you can't answer them, well, of course, ask Mubin and then we'll email you his response to that. Um, so we can talk about Pakistan, United States within the context of today's workshop. The other thing that I'm going to open the floor up is to ask about is if you have any questions about writing, research, publication, any of the topics we discussed in the past three workshops. So feel free, you can open up your audio or you can give us a message in the chat.